So I want to talk to you guys about how we calculate board feet. And as a reminder, board feet is a measure of volume. So if I have this piece of material here that I've just squared up, and I know its dimensions, I need to figure out how much material is here. And the big difference between area and board feet is that board feet really takes into account the thickness of the material. And in particular, it takes into account the rough thickness. What was the thickness this board started at before I milled it down to its current size? So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. So the piece of material that we are working with here has the following dimensions. It is 10 inches long by 2 3/16 inches wide by 7/8 of an inch thick. All right, so we have our length, our width, and our thickness. Now remember, our formula for calculating board feet is as follows. It is our length times our width times our rough thickness times our number of pieces, and then all of that is going to get divided by 144, which is the number of square inches in a square foot. We're going from measurements in inches to board feet, so we have to convert our unit of measure. So let's take a look at these different parts, okay? Here's our length right here. We're going to plug it into our length. Here's our width. It plugs into our width. But our thickness that we have over here is our finished thickness, and our calculation calls for our rough thickness. Rough thickness is the thickness that the board started as before you began milling it down. And rough thickness is always expressed in quarters. So when material is ordered from the lumber yard, it comes in the following thicknesses. It comes in 4/4, which is 1. It comes in 5/4, which is 1.25. 6/4, which is 1.5. 8/4. 10/4. 12/4. 16/4. All the way up to 4 inches in rough thickness. Those are our common sizes, okay? And it's always expressed in quarters. You will never say, what was the rough thickness of your material? 1.5 inches. That's just not what you would say. Instead of saying 1.5 inches, you would say it was 6/4 material. That was the rough thickness. And so understanding that terminology is important for you guys. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that your rough thickness is always going to be greater than your finished thickness. So looking at our example here, if I've got a finished thickness of 7/8, that when I calculate my rough thickness, I'm not using 7/8, but I'm probably going to use either 4/4 or 5/4 material for my thickness. Now, you may be wondering, Mr. Taylor, why did you say maybe 4/4 or 5/4? Well, the reality, and just to complicate things a little bit further, is that when 4/4 material arrives in our shop, it's actually already 15/16. It's a 16th under. 5/4 material is actually 1 3/16. 6/4 material is actually 1 7/16. And so we lose material in the milling process before it even arrives to us in the shop. So it's important to realize that if my finished thickness on my plans calls for 7/8, then I am likely starting with a rough thickness of 5/4. So let's keep that in mind as we do these calculations. We are going to make our calculation using our rough thickness of 5/4. Okay? And then our number of pieces only really comes into play if you've got more than one of something. I only have one piece of material here that I've created. And so my number of pieces is going to just simply be 1. If I were making a chair or a table that has 4 legs, I would record the length of the leg, the width of the leg, the rough thickness of the leg, and then I would just multiply by 4 because I have 4 of them instead of having to make this calculation 4 separate times. So now that we've talked through the different elements of this calculation, let's go ahead and make this calculation to figure out how many board feet of material we're working with here. So according to the formula that we've got, our calculation is going to look like this. Our length is 10 inches times our width, which is 2 3/16, or 2.3125. You'll notice I'm not rounding that number off. It's really important that I use the full decimals all the way through the calculation until the calculation is complete. So 10 times 2.3125 times our rough thickness, which we have decided is going to be 5/4, or 1.25, times our number of pieces, which in this case is just 1. And we're going to divide all of that by 144. So let's get our calculator out and we'll take a look at that calculation. So with our calculator open, let's go ahead and start making this calculation. So we've got our length, 10, times our width, 2.3125, times our rough thickness, 1.25, times the number of pieces, 1, and that gives us 28.90625. It's really important that we don't round this number yet, all right? And that's going to be divided by 144. So we take that whole number, we divide by 144, and that gives us this number, 0.200737, etc. Less than 1/4 of a board foot. When we make our calculations, we are always going to round our answers to 2 decimal places. So the correct answer for the number of board feet in this material is 0.20, and it's board feet. The label for board feet is just BF. So this is our correct answer right here, 0.20 BF. Now, like I said, it's important that you make sure that you use your full decimals here and your full decimal here to make sure that you come up with the correct answer. If you round either at this step or at this step, your answer down here is going to be wrong. So it's really important that you use full decimals all the way until you've completed your calculations, and then go ahead and round to 2 decimal places.